Right, so we'll get started. It's 7:02.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca. Okay, the first thing we need to do is we need a motion to approve the minutes from the November 10th board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Paul seconds. Okay, is there discussion?
Yes,
Ginny?
just a quick amendment to, under my section, just one little section there. The implication was that if Oakland Mills Village Board were to take advantage of what the consultant said and consider getting some advice from them, that there would be an additional cost. And so there won't be, so really the rewording of that one section would say, Ms. Thomas reported that one of the consultants was suggesting I'll send this to you, Amy, or I already did send it to you.
Yeah.
Was suggesting that one of the consultants was suggesting that the CA board take advantage of the expertise of the consultants it hired for the new town zoning task force for the Howard County General Plan. They could give advice on possible ways to develop the village centers if we were so interested. This would not cost the villages. I was trying to make that clear. He suggested, I had at the meeting with CA, that maybe Oakland Mills might be interested. And I'm just emphasizing there would be no charge for this.
Okay, so yeah, because they're already under contract with CA, so it's not will be paid for, they're already paid.
Right, we're not going to.
Correct.
Yeah, but it may not even occur. And we'll talk a little bit about more what the consultants are putting in the report that that some of us on the board talked about over the weekends. Okay, but that's it. So I just moved to amend the other one section to include that.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on the agenda as amended? Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. That's 5-0-0. Okay, next order of business is to approve the agenda for tonight's board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, Bill makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Lynn seconds. Any discussion on tonight's agenda? Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5-0-0. Okay, very good. All right, before we go to resident remarks, I have to enter something into the record so that we can proceed with business in the future. So I'm actually going to look over to my other screen and just read something for the record. Section 2.03B of the Oakland Mills Community Association bylaws addresses the removal of directors due to non-attendance at meetings. I won't read the whole section as our bylaws are published and shared with each director, but I'll cover relevant details for the record. Director Larry Pretlow was absent from consecutive meetings of September 22nd, October 13th, October 27th, and November 10th of 2020. Our bylaws require that the absence from 4 consecutive meetings institutes removal proceedings. These proceedings begin with preparation of a notice from the village manager to the director, signed by one of the remaining directors in good standing. Our village manager, Sandy, prepared this notice following the November 10th, 2020 meeting and brought it to me for signature on November 12th, 2020. After getting my signature, she mailed it to the last known address on November 12th, 2020. Per our bylaws, a director notified and directed to show cause pursuant to this section may within 10 days of the date of the notice submit a written response or a written request for hearing before the remaining directors, which shall be mailed to the board of directors in care of the village office. A request for hearing shall be granted and the hearing shall be scheduled at the convenience of all concerned, but no later than 30 days after the request is received. Failure by a director to submit a written response to the notice or to request a hearing within the prescribed time period, or a determination by a majority of the remaining directors upon consideration of the director's response that he or she has failed to advance sufficient cause for retention on the board of directors, shall affect the director's removal with no further action required by the board of directors or members of the association. Mr. Pretlow did not request a hearing with the Board of Directors within the time period prescribed by our bylaws. Therefore, without further action required by the remainder of the board, he is removed from his position as a director of the Oakland Mills Community Association. We'll discuss filling the vacant director position at an upcoming meeting.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Okay, will I be including that in the minutes? Is there as an attachment or something?
I can send it to you. I mean, I think the important thing is to include the portion of the bylaw that I read verbatim, but I'll send you the whole thing I just read, so it's in our record. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now we move on to resident remarks. So if you're a resident wishing to make remarks, you will have 3 minutes per resident. And if you could either turn on your camera and raise your hand at me or use the blue hand raise option in Zoom, we will call you in the order you raise your hand. All right, so I see Lena. Is there anyone else?
Ashley.
And Ashley, okay. Anyone else? All right, Lena, let's get you unmuted.
Oh, I'll do it.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I actually had planned to speak tonight until today, but I did want to share my disappointment in the last meeting when I heard one of our board members suggest blocking access to Meriwether Post Pavilion with a New Jersey, with a barrier wall. Now, these are roads that every vehicle that accesses the property at Meriwether uses, emergency vehicles, staff, buses. So that was, I know it was a joke, but it wasn't funny. But in relation to that, I want to share with you that 462 people as of today have signed a petition. The petition reads, in a year when COVID-19 pandemic has canceled nearly every concert, festival, celebration, and social gathering in our community, the Columbia Association is trying to stop the one event the pandemic can't, the Symphony of Lights. The Columbia Association's lawsuit to halt Symphony of Lights is over property matters. Whatever concerns CA might have are vastly outweighed by the need for community organizations to focus on supporting the community during this extremely challenging year. We have had, I'm going to say again, 462 people in about 24 hours that have signed this petition. And it so says, by signing this petition, you are asking CA's board of directors to put their lawsuit on hold and allow the Symphony of Lights to continue in 2020 for the enjoyment of families from around the region. There will be plenty of time to work through legal issues in the months to come, but this is one of the only chances left to bring joy to a melancholy year. I think CA really needs to take a step back and reassess what it's doing here. Thank you.
You.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Lena,
Oh, Is there
Yeah.
back and forth during resident outspeak?
Mhm.
I didn't think there was, I thought there was a
Oh.
whole meeting about this. Wasn't that one of your, I mean, I'm fine doing a back and forth, but I thought you guys had instituted guidelines that didn't allow it.
No.
Oh.
No back and forth.
Okay.
so can I ask her a question later?
No, we can ask follow-up questions of
Okay,
residents after they
Yeah.
speak. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just curious, if you know if those people are Oakland Mills, Columbia at large, or if you don't, like
No.
if people had to give any residents notice.
No,
Okay.
I don't. I would be curious, maybe I can ask Jenny Thomas if they've gotten any emails about this over the last 24 hours. She might be able to tell you about residents, because I know they were getting emails too. Which,
I don't know why, Jenny, you're on mute. I'm asking to unmute you.
There she is.
We've gotten
Okay.
a couple of emails, I think one from Oakland Mills, a bunch that are non-village. They didn't identify a village, Ellicott City. So the
All right,
reason
thank
I'm
you.
muting is Chuck's got the TV on the other room, so I'll keep muting on and off if that's okay.
Okay, as long as you know you can do that, hopefully.
All right. Thank you, Lena. Ashley?
sure.
Hey, everybody. Ashley Austin here again, District 2.
Hi.
There's some new faces that I see. So I am the District Aide to Dr. Opal Jones, but as the board knows, I'm always here to support, take any questions or concerns you guys have back. So just wanted to say happy holidays ahead of the holiday a little bit. But if
Thank
you
you.
guys, as you see, I'm already like decorated behind me. I started like November 1st because I love the holidays. But if anyone needs anything, I am here. If I can't answer it now, then Sandy and Jonathan, they have my email. I'm always here for you guys.
Thank you. Happy
Thank
holidays.
you. And we appreciate that you're coming to all of our meetings. Okay, I didn't see any other resident hands raised, so we will move on to new business. And actually the only new business item was the one Ginny was talking about as we amended the minutes, and that was the possibility of the CA Newtown zoning consultants offering suggestions about the Oakland Mills Village area. So Ginny, I'll turn that one over to you.
Well, actually, it's changed. One of its part of this has changed a little bit. What the consultants are going to do, and I think this is a compliment for Oakland Mills Village Board and the work you've done. They were really impressed that all of the villages boards did a village plan like they're required under CB 29. But we are the only village that actually lobbied hard to secure funding from both the Columbia Association and the county government to actually do a market study. And they were very impressed with that. They hadn't heard about that before, and they are going to put that in their report. No other village secured an actual market study. So I just thought I'd pass that on to you.
Jenny, is that the market study or is that the
One that
smart grid?
Sorry, it's the one that we did after we did the village center study. We then secured funding from CA and the county to actually hire a firm to do the economic study of what was feasible and what wasn't. Sorry.
So that was the smart group, is that right?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Boland Smart?
Yeah.
Yes.
Feasibility study.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the comment was a little bit more than that, because we're the only village that did suggestions for areas beyond the village center.
Yeah, right.
So we've got a much wider footprint than any of the other villages, and that's something that, you know, when the market study came back, they said, well, townhouses along Stevens Forest Road might be an option, for example. While I'm all in for getting free advice, I mean, essentially we have a market study already done.
Yeah.
I don't know how much somebody new coming in will be able to add anything to it. I mean, that's my own opinion, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure we're actually going to pursue that, but the other thing that was interesting is Uri, who used to be the planning director for Howard County, when he called me about the market study and whether that would be, you know, he'd want to put that in the report. He thought Kimco owned our village center. I said, no. So I again explained to him, how extensive our village study was, as Paul just said, and also how we have the owner is in Pennsylvania, and this is the only village center that he owns, and that is not all the property. So I went over again how complicated our issue is compared to Dorsey Search or River Hill, et cetera. And so they're really impressed with, one, what the board did and the community originally, and two, with the market study, the economic development study. So that's it. That's all on that subject.
So Jenny, didn't we just to clarify, in addition to the study that the smart group did, didn't we already have previous to that, wasn't a market study done by CA?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we've had two
They
market
did
studies.
all the villages, a huge one.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Cindy. I just wanted
Yeah,
to be.
CAs didn't really, yeah, like Sandy said, CA covered all the villages, so it really wasn't a deep dive into our village.
They
The
gave
one
us
that
a little,
county-
they gave us village by village breakdown, but basically it was like nothing different. Nail salon, hair salon.
Right, right.
Wasn't any aha moment thing.
I think the market one we did was much more in depth. Whether we agree with it completely or not, it was what they're impressed that it was really an economic development study. And we were the only village to actually lobby to get those funds and to do that. No other village did that. So that's it.
So Jenny, it sounds like, I mean, even though we have this as new business, it sounds like there's probably no further
No.
action for the board to take, so we can retire it after tonight.
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
all right. Well, that was quick and easy. Let's go over to old business. So first item on old business is the county executive's first fiscal 22 citizens budget hearing, Oakland Mills testimony. And Sandy circulated a draft of that testimony, I think this morning or yesterday evening.
Yeah,
I
no,
found
I
it in my
got it
inbox this
today.
morning.
Yeah.
The testimony, does cover all the items we discussed at the last meeting. Some of that testimony is kind of recycled from the past because there are a few things that we've talked about in previous sessions, like the oh gosh, the leaf vac, the ice rink, a couple of other things. Of course, we've changed the transportation portion to reflect better where the county may be going in the future versus where it's no longer going in the future. And then, of course, in the education section, we're first of all thanking the county executive for his support of Talbot Springs, and then kind of using the fact that Talbot Springs got to the point it needed to be rebuilt as the springboard into, hey, what's going on in Oakland Mills Middle and Oakland Mills High. And, we talked about this at the education committee meeting just before this. And, the county executive and even the county council cannot just, they're not just going to give the school system what it hasn't asked for. So this is really the start of us, kind of putting our foot down and just calling attention to the fact that the deferred maintenance and the neglect of these facilities has gone on for so long. So if you look at it carefully, we're not asking for a specific amount or even a specific timeline. We're basically saying it's about time that the county executive, the council, the Board of Education, the state work together on this deferred maintenance issue and really look at schools like the Oakland Mills campus and start asking questions about why certain facilities are getting deferred year after year, decade after decade, while we're putting our money elsewhere. So that's the point there. Another recommendation the Education Committee is making to the board tonight when it comes to this testimony is to add 3 attachments to the testimony. Obviously, I wouldn't read this, but when we submit it electronically, and those are the deferred maintenance tabs on Oakland Mills Middle and Oakland Mills High from the school system's 2017 assessment of their facilities. So this is the tab, for example, that says that Oakland Mills High, even back then, had an HVAC system that wasn't worth maintaining anymore and does not provide a conducive learning environment. And also provide the thing that I showed at our last couple of meetings, and that is the current spreadsheet of deferred maintenance across the system. So that's the one that shows that Oakland Mills High and Oakland Mills Middle have a combined roughly $160 million of deferred maintenance. So that's really the only change or the only recommended change from the Education Committee on the education part of the budget that you wouldn't have known about when you received the draft testimony early today, since the Education Committee just met before this meeting. Jenny?
Yeah, Jonathan, is there any chance that in the case of Oakland Mills High and Oakland Mills Middle, there are any possible health or environmental violations, safety violations that we can get the health department in or some other agencies in that would cite the school board and force the issue and force them to make some repairs?
So I've asked the principals whether there have been any air quality situations, and there haven't been. Now, what we don't know, and that's why we threw in the hybrid learning section, What we don't know is whether their HVAC systems are, sufficient for COVID, should they return to school. Now, that decision has been pushed off till April now. It's no longer January 28th, now it's April. But all the school system is saying about their heating and ventilation systems is they're putting, new filters into all the systems, and where it can be done, they're going to set up the systems to do outside air exchange. What they're not being specific about, and what even our administrators don't know, is whether that can be done in those buildings, given the age of those systems and the conditions of those buildings. So, that's one of the things that I know at least one member of the Board of Education is looking into, Vicky Cutronio, because I've been in touch with her about it, and answers aren't forthcoming. So that's why we threw in that little hybrid learning section after we talk about those two schools, because, basically what Oakland Mills wants to say is, you better make sure that all these schools are safe. It shouldn't matter how old the facility is or when it was last renovated. No students or teachers should go into a building that's any more or less risky than the neighboring building.
Agree.
Bill?
I've got a few comments. I have called up online here from March of last year, 2019. County Executive Ball pre-files bill to advance construction of high school number 13. And paragraph, the process to acquire the 77-acre Mission Road site has spanned 3 county administrations. Council approval will ensure groundbreaking in spring 2020 and school completion by September 2023. Projected to be 287,000 square feet, the 13th high school will accommodate 1,650 students with parking for 579 vehicles and 34 school buses. The school is expected to cost $130.7 million. I don't know if land acquisition is included in that money amount. My point is with $110,000 in deferred maintenance on Oakland Mills High School, we're talking it's easier to replace it with a new high school. And it might be the same scenario as at Talbot Springs, where you build the new on the ball fields and then tear down the old and put the ball fields there. So it's a shell game swap. And that, to me, we're in the area money-wise where that now becomes the realistic possibility in my mind, as opposed to spending 110 renovating a building that's, 50 years old almost. To me, I think we need to start pushing that money issue, that with Oakland Mills, we might be looking at a new high school as a better option as opposed to deferred maintenance fixes on the one one. And secondly, then Wild Lake has gotten a new high school and a new middle school. They're a village that's only, I think, a couple years older than Oakland Mills. That's on the west side of 29. We're on the east side. In the county, there's a big split in lots of different variables, east side, west side. Okay, and I won't get into that. That's another discussion. But the west side has gotten new high school, middle school. We on the east side, still fumbling along with 2 very old school buildings. I think it'd be important for us to start talking new buildings, given the amount of deferred maintenance, instead of fixing something that's really old for that amount of money. Hey, build new. And let's see, okay. Yep, those were the 2 key points that I think we should consider adding to our testimony. Okay, now that's just an idea on my part, so I throw it out there. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. And I've also been trying to figure out the cost of different options, and it is a little bit difficult because there's county funding, there's state. In some cases, there's land acquisition. In cases where there's not land acquisition, it's sometimes unclear whether the cost of building the replacement school also includes the cost of demolishing the old school, because there's asbestos and other stuff that has to be done that can be costly. So I don't even know what this figure represents for Talbot Springs, but one of the price tags for the building of the new Talbot Springs, and I don't know whether this includes the destruction of the old after the new is built, is I shouldn't say only, it's a lot of money, but $33 million. Now, of course, that's an elementary school. So elementary schools certainly don't have the same requirements as high schools. But of course, much of what a high school requires is already there. It's just about whether you can keep what's there while also finding adequate land to do a rebuild, which might be a challenge at Oakland Mills High, because the other issue with Oakland Mills High is that it has a land deficit relative to other high schools. It does not have the acreage that other schools have. So if you think about Oakland Mills High's footprint, it sits on the very eastern edge of its property, right? The townhomes are right next to it, so you can't do anything to the east. And with the addition out the back of it almost touches the multi-use path. There's just a little path down, and you're at the back corner of the school. So, you're talking about the stadium or the athletic fields if you're looking for land to rebuild, which means then there's costs of relocating all those other things. The middle school is a bit different because the middle school, just like Talbot Springs, has a big empty field just to its west that belongs to it. So you at the middle school, you could do a Talbot Springs. You could build a new school next door to the old one and then knock the old one down and, basically seed the dirt and just replace the old field with the new field and the old school with the new school. So I think it probably is a consideration, and I can take a look at the testimony because maybe we need to be more explicit, but that's really what I'm starting to imply there. Look, you let Talbot Springs get to the point where it's cheaper to knock it down and rebuild it. How far are you going to go with Oakland Mills Middle and Oakland Mills High? You basically need to address these things very soon, or that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be rebuilding them.
Jonathan, real quick on that. The price tag on Talbot Springs is a elementary school for just under 600 kids. I think at Oakland Mills High School, we're around 1,100, 1,200 students or 1,000.
I think it's this year's enrollment is weird because of virtual learning, but no, I believe it's pushing 1,400 now.
Okay, 14. Okay, so we're still talking big price tag for new high school. However, Oakland Mills is located right next to Blandare Park. And one option would be to give the high school priority at the multi-use field there and a baseball field there, so that if we wound up losing part of the baseball field or softball fields there to build a new, bigger high school, and we could always build up. Okay, you can go 3 stories. You don't have to build out always. You can go build up. But a way around the land deficit would be to give Oakland Mills High School priority use of fields at Blandare Park, since it's adjacent and within walking distance. So that those might be things to look at as we go through this discussion.
Actually, I had a theoretical conversation with one of the incoming members of the Board of Education, but what we were actually saying was, don't give Oakland Mills High School priority, since Oakland Mills High School doesn't have the acreage other schools have, and since the county owns the park right behind it, just give it the closest field, make that the stadium. And then you have the land to do what you need to do with the school. Yeah, I mean, that's probably a bit much to get into at the first county executive's budget hearing. We probably need to talk to the Board of Education and others, but yeah, all those, those are the kinds of thoughts going through other heads as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, you would need the District 2 rep on board before you made any of those recommendations.
Yep. All right, other comments or questions about the budget testimony? Okay, I can take, if everyone agrees, I can take Bill's suggestion and write something, just put a few more explicit words into the transition from the thanks for Talbot Springs to the what's going on at Oakland Mills Middle and High, to point out that we're getting to the point where rebuilding is going to be a better option than renovating. Given that I'm going to do that, is there anyone who wants to make a motion to approve the testimony at tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Okay, I'll take Bill as a motion. I'll take Paul as a second. Any further discussion?
Can you clarify what it is you're asking?
Where?
Not asking us, but asking in the budget thing.
Oh, you mean the change I'm going to make per Bill's suggestion?
Yep.
So after we thank the county executive for supporting Talbot Springs, and then I say HCPSS is constantly behind in funding deferred maintenance to the point that long overdue projects basically fall off the charts with tens or even hundreds of millions, blah, blah, blah. I then say Talbot Springs was neglected so long that it became more cost effective to demolish it than expand it. I think I would add a sentence right there before I start talking about Oakland Mills High and Oakland Mills Middle, saying that the deferred maintenance costs at the Oakland Mills Middle and High campus are adding up to the point where the same would be true of those two facilities.
Sounds good.
So just, it's implied in what I'm saying, but I agree with Bill. I think we should just say it explicitly. Like, you know, if something doesn't happen soon, we're going to be coming back demanding a new school.
Works for me.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion of the motion? Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 0. Okay, thank you. All right, next up in old business, we have increased vehicle speeds throughout Columbia. So this is a follow-up to last week. And Jim Alvey has actually been in touch with the police and I think the Councilman Jones' office. So Jim asked if he could join this conversation. And of course, the board wanted to follow up as well because we had the conversation of speeding and drag racing and right turns on red and just all kinds of bad behavior on the roads in and around Oakland Mills.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, hi, Jim.
Hey, Sandy, should I just kind of give a little background of my concern and what I've done, kind of a couple things that have happened and recommendations?
Please, yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate this. And before I start, I just want to say, since I have the opportunity, thank you to everybody on the board for your service to our community. Having been on there myself, I know it's your personal time that you give up for us, and I really appreciate it. I know a lot of people do and maybe never get the chance to say so, but I definitely appreciate it. This is an issue that wasn't an issue until earlier this year for me anyway. And as I learned, it's becoming a growing issue for other residents, not just the folks that live in my block, my cul-de-sac who we talk to, but also as I expand my discussions. And the issue is, it started as just an annoyance of the volume of cars in our general area. And there's nothing that can be done about that, unfortunately. The volume of cars, they're making cars louder, they're making stock type cars, and there's motorcycles that are loud, and there's just adjustments you can make to cars to make them louder. It's difficult for the police to deal with that. So this is not about that. It's just how I started to be aware of the issue, because our house backs up fairly closely to Route 175. Paul knows we're right on the corner, basically, of Thunder Hill Road and Route 175. So two reasons why that's important. There's a stoplight there, and it's the space where people are going back and forth between Thunder Hill and Tamar on both sides of 175 there. And what I've been observing and thought I was crazy, but then confirmed that I wasn't, at least not about this, that there are cars speeding on those areas in much more volume than there's ever been before. It got to the point that we were talking in our backyard and we couldn't hear ourselves. Neighbors would come over, we'd be on the back, and we'd have to stop until whoever was driving on the roads went by. And what became clear was that they weren't just loud cars, they were racing. You could hear them take off, squeal wheels, race off, disappear, the sound disappears. You could hear them coming the other way, racing, and then stopping at the light, and then taking off and racing until they get to 29. You could literally hear them go 29 north. It became something that wasn't just a nuisance, but a concern. And then we started to observe actual reckless driving between motorcycles, smaller white, for whatever reason, little sports cars, and the stock car type Mustangs and Chevys that are out, where they would literally weave inside and out traffic on 175 and also 29, purely recklessly And of course, I'm sure you've all experienced this where you end up at the next light and they're right next to you. So it's not like their reckless driving did anything other than put everybody's lives in jeopardy and make a lot of noise. So I got sick of it and I said, what are we going to do about this? And I filed a police report back on August 25th. Spent time, put it in, and nothing happened. I got an email back that my report had been filed. I waited, nothing. And so on September 17th, about a month later, I reached out to Ginny, and she has been fantastic in terms of support on this, ideas, avenues, connections. And so I've been on kind of a quest to just find out what can be done. I reached out per her suggestion to Calvin Ball. I sent an email to his office. I've sent 3 now, and I'm disappointed because I have never gotten one response by phone or email from Calvin. I consider him a friend, somebody who worked with us on the board. Not one outreach, not one response from his office. Very disappointed about that. Who I'm pleased with is the Howard County Police. Corporal Roberto Lopez emailed me immediately and called me. We had a conversation I'll tell you about in a second. And the other gentleman from the Howard County Police who's been fantastic is Lieutenant Dave Francis, retired, who works in community outreach. And he also immediately replied by email, and we've had 2 great conversations. What I've learned in the process is that this is not my imagination. It's a growing issue. It's actually bad enough that the police department is aware of a Sunday afternoon gathering at Snowden River and Little Patuxent at the park and ride there just off of 32, where every Sunday there's a gathering of hot rods. And there have been a number of times in these conversations that they have told me they have been there, they've monitored activity. Some of the guys race off, they race down Snowden River or one of the other streets, they pull them over, and they've actually been accosted. The police have been surrounded by other attendees of those events. Their vehicles have been slammed, the police have been threatened. So this is really out of control. And what he said, what Officer Lopez said was, think about it. This is Sunday afternoon in Columbia. They go home someplace. So they're in our community. So they're not just doing this on Sundays. They're driving around all the time. And what we've observed is that between 5 and 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, if you listen, you can hear it up and down Tamar to Thunder Hill. Yeah, so that's a real thing. And also all weekend long, you can hear racing periodically and certainly in the evenings. Over the about a week ago, there was a blow up on Nextdoor app, which I'm a fan of, totally on this topic. And that's where I learned that it wasn't just our section of highway here that's close to me, but concerns all around in kind of a circle or square, I guess it would be, from 29, concerns from 108, concerns from Route 40, and of course on 175, all the same people saying the same things about loud vehicles, of course, but also the racing and reckless driving. So I wanted to elevate this to whatever level it can be, because the things that I'm asking for are the same sort of feeling. I don't know if you all have the same feeling about Route 100. I don't drive anywhere above the speed limit on Route 100 because there's a really good likelihood you're going to get a ticket. They do a good job of making you aware that they're there and they're going to monitor it. And so you just don't do that. There's no feeling like that on any of these other roads. It's the Wild West on 175 and 29 and 108 and 40. Speed cameras would help, at least set them up. The discussion about them, the visibility of them could help. Increased police traffic enforcement would help in the way I just described. Just being visible, just a police car sitting there will slow people down. And then they also said it's up to residents. Our part is to not just complain about it, but actually start writing down license plates. Lieutenant Francis told me that if they get a license plate, they will look it up and they'll send a letter to that resident and tell them they've been observed in reckless driving. If they're caught again, they will face fines or imprisonment, and they will be in that area that person lives in. So there is actually activity. all of that is what I've learned and what I've done, but I still don't feel like there's enough attention being paid to this, which is why I was really happy Jenny and Sandy offered that I could speak here to see if there's anything else that can be done to raise this issue, because I think it's just going to get worse. Maybe it's related to COVID. Maybe these folks are just all pent up, but you can't blame everything on COVID. So I don't think so. So I'll stop there and see if anybody has any questions or suggestions.
Thanks, Jim. Oh, I see Ginny has her hand raised, but I just want to clarify something for the record. Not all Mustangs are bad.
It depends on the operator.
No, as I was sharing with the board last week or 2 weeks ago, in Owen Brown, between Cradle Rock area and Snowden on Broken Land Parkway and Stevens Forest Road area. The same situation occurred with speeding. And then when the cops stopped them, the same thing you described, where they surrounded the cop car and were beating on the cop car. That is like really unbelievable.
It's nuts.
So my concern is at some point, somebody's going to get really hurt. And I wish the county would do something about it, cameras, whatever, but this is apparently a problem on Route 40. I'm sure there are other places in the county.
Yeah.
So I think it's serious. We've been lucky so far, but I cannot believe guys would surround a police car and start beating on a police car. That's like, wow.
And then what happened?
So,
We don't know the answer to that. Both that there's apparently been 2 incidents of that. They didn't say, maybe they're not allowed to say what happened, whether they made arrests or not, but the incidents definitely happened at least twice.
Now, this was from the Owen Brown Village people over there that told me about this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this came straight from the Howard County Police, the versions I got, so I know it's true.
So Ashley, if I could put you on the spot for a moment. At our last board meeting, we discussed this, and we thought that in Howard County, speed cameras are still only permitted within school zones. Do you know whether that's true? And if so, do you know whether the council is planning on giving any consideration to expanding the speed camera program beyond school zones?
So I am not sure of that, but I will take that back and then follow up with you and Sandy with an email.
Okay. Thank you.
I can definitely ask that question.
Thank you.
And
Are
then
you
I
getting
did hear,
complaints at your office?
what was that?
Are you hearing from residents at your office?
So I have not gotten a call. I am typically the one that answers all the phone calls for our constituents. And so I have not gotten a phone call, and I was going to say, Jim, if you don't mind sending that over to our office, any of the emails that you've sent, we are more than happy to look into it. I know that we have a couple of people with the police department as well that we can follow up with. And we have seen, as a result of some of those contacts, increasing the police traffic that is through certain areas at certain times in an effort to hopefully reduce that. But I also hear the concern, like from Rebecca and Jenny, about surrounding the police car, because again, that's a safety issue. So we can definitely look into it if you don't mind just forwarding that over to our office, and then I'll follow up, Jonathan, with your question.
Great. Yeah. And thank you, Ashley. And Sandy, if you can get me that email address, that'd be great.
Sure.
Ashley, Jonathan, Ashley, I heard also people leaving Blandair Park. I sent the email to the board of the one lady that said Sohap area, they were just speeding Oakland Mills Road, going through stop signs into Sohap. But the other one was Kilimanjaro coming out of Blandair Park again and swerving down Kilimanjaro and speeding. Now that is a school zone. So if we can only do it in school zones, we could certainly do it there then, yeah.
Yep, understood.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, this is serious business. My opinion is that we've got cameras all over the place to help with traffic reports. This lane is clogged. It takes twice as long to get from here to here, so that it helps people reroute on their own so the traffic flows better. So if we've got cameras all over the place for that, we need to get the guts to pass laws to use those cameras for speed enforcement also, and start ticketing people left and right to get behavior changed. Now, my personal opinion is, I'd love to see a camera on every road, everywhere. If you exceed the limit by the limit up to 5 miles an hour, that's your grace period, no problem. But 5 to 10 miles an hour above the limit, you get a ticket. 11 to 15, you get a bigger ticket, bigger fine. 15 and over, big ticket, big fine, car gets impounded, okay? That's the only way you're ever going to get people's behavior to change. Slaps on the wrist aren't going to do anything. And when police cars get surrounded by bad guys, I don't know what happened, but in my opinion, you get other cop cars there, arrest all the guys and put them in jail for a while and impound their cars. And that'll be the last time they ever consider doing that. We get what we accept in life. If we accept bad behavior, we get it. We have to stop accepting it, and eventually we won't get it. So I'd be in favor of whatever the county council could do to get more areas enforced with speed cameras. I'd be for whatever the Howard County delegation could do to have more areas enforced by speed cameras. The technology is there, works excellent, and people are very used to having cameras all over the place to help traffic flow, okay? So why not traffic enforcement? Thanks.
Jonathan, I'd like to encourage us to not just focus only on speeding, because what I've run into that I find very frightening are the people who come and cut you off, and then the other guy, or they're going across 3 lanes, and then the other guy is going back across the 3 lanes in the other direction, and it's clearly some sort of a game going on.
Yep.
And it's very frightening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's frightening as a driver. I know noise is annoying, and I know speeding is a real hazard, but that's also something we need to include when we're talking about this. It's really it's not exactly aggressive driving. I don't know.
Oh, it is.
Aggressive driving.
Yeah, it's reckless and aggressive.
It's reckless driving, and it's terrible. And I've seen it on Broken Land Parkway. I've seen it going from this side of Columbia over to downtown on Broken Land, where they're cutting in and out to get on the little Patuxent really quickly. And it's a real concern.
Paul?
Yeah, I put in a number of complaints at the main police building in Ellicott City. And I talked to somebody there, this was a while back, because I usually go up 29 on a regular basis until COVID happened. And they were telling me that on 29, they don't have enough areas where they can basically pull people over. At least that's what they were telling me. Now, I put in complaints since then because of the speeding on 175. I can hear them, ratcheting up the cars. And I've called the 911 number and told them, I said, they're going up and down 175. And they said, well, we'll send a patrolman out there. But I'm intrigued by the comment that the police says that we can write down license plates and forward those to the county, and that they will then go ahead and send a warning letter out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first I've heard about that. This is not a great time of the year to do it, but I can see where a number of us could get together at the appropriate times when they're doing this on a regular basis and just taking down license plates.
So hard to do when you're like driving and you know.
Yeah.
Also, if they're surrounding the cops in protest, I would be hesitant to send, you sitting out there on the side of the road, obviously.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that we could support that, but I mean, it's tough to get a license plate when you're in a car.
I'm with Charlotte. If you take a picture.
Use your
Yeah,
eyes.
you take a picture.
I'm driving. I can't use my phone.
If you have a passenger.
Jim can drive me around.
Yes, I'll drive you
just
around,
take
Sandy. Yeah.
Pictures.
I would
Rebecca?
wonder, I would wonder too, that if we know that they get together on Sunday afternoon to do this sort of drag racing, why don't the police have cars there ahead of time, you know, to,
That's the scary thing, Lynn. Actually, they do. So they sit there, and these guys are so aggressive. They sneak out of there and they take off, and the police are sitting in the parking ride and they're off racing down the road. Yeah, so they do. They're there. They say they park there. Now, this was a summertime thing when it first started. Maybe it's not happening as much now that it's cooled off. Maybe we're fortunate on that front. But if it's still going on, I know they have a police presence.
yeah, our house backs onto Farewell Road, and I hear them really gunning their motors up and down Farewell Road as well.
Mhm.
Rebecca?
Just to broaden it a little bit as far as actions that we can kind of do going forward. And maybe this ties into the county budget hearing, but the roads it sounds like it's a problem. And Jim, I'm down the street along Thunder Hill, so
Okay.
I hear them racing up 175 and down 29 too. You can
Yeah,
tell the
you
path.
can
that
tell where they're going. Yeah.
Yep, but 175 and Broken Land and Snowden River and Little Patuxent, well, I guess that's, anyway, they're all this weird road, right? They're not highways,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not neighborhood roads. So the lanes are wide
Yeah.
and they're straight enough that people can go fast, but not safely. It's not a highway. And I think that's something that as a county, these roads kind of accidentally ended up this big as we developed and had to widen them to contain the traffic. I think the county really needs to relook at it. And right now they're doing a good job looking at Oakland Mills. I don't know if it's a problem there. I don't think any of us back that close to Oakland Mills if we could hear it, but you know, they did that traffic study last year and realized that they had these 4 big wide lanes that really just encourage speeding. So instead, they're cutting it down a road diet, as they call it, and creating bike lanes
Interesting.
to discourage
diet.
speeding. Yeah, a road diet to discourage speeding. So there'll still be plenty of space for cars, but there won't be masses of amounts of space that encourage speeding. So anyway, that might be something to have the county look at as to how we can design our roads better, not just add after the fact cameras and police, but design the roads so that they're not setting the scene, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think I agree, but I think that's also the state. So we're basically, yeah, I mean, because, you know, we're kind of surrounded by both county and state roads. So Snowden River Parkway, Broken Land Parkway are county, but then 29 and 175 are state highways.
108 too.
108 is also a state highway,
Yeah.
yes, but that's only 2 lanes. As it passes through Oakland Mills, it widens at 29. But it seems like most of the issues are like 29 to 175 to Snowden. It almost sounds like there's a little track around Oakland Mills and Owen Brown, right? You go up 29, you go across 175, you go Snowden, you come to Broken Land, and you've made your loop.
And I would encourage us not even to focus on 29, because 29 is a highway, and even though we can hear it there, it's not in Jim's backyard, it's not in Lynn's backyard, it's not, you know. I think focusing on the smaller roads might be easier to actually get stuff done.
I think your point about it's the connection of the roads. If you're going faster on 29 because you are, or you're coming off of 100, then you're keeping that speed up and you think it's okay to keep on speeding.
Yeah.
That's the mindset. So yeah, but you're right. It's going to be more complicated to talk about 29.
I like the idea of having some assessment, some survey, some research that gives you the data.
Yeah.
I think you can make a stronger case that way.
Absolutely.
I don't know how one goes about doing that, but I think I've seen like ways that they've tracked neighborhood speed limits to put in speed bumps. So maybe something that
Michelle,
speed studies.
I was just going to say that. So thank you, Michelle, because what they did in Oakland Mills on Thunder Hill Road, and they ended up putting in some bumps, has really helped in that neighborhood. That became kind of its own little cut through between 108 and 175, and traffic has really slowed down. And they did that because they got the data and then made the decision. The Corporal Lopez told me that the traffic section makes the decisions about a lot of this. So I'm not sure who the traffic section is. Maybe Ashley, you can help us with that in terms of what that means. But in terms of whether it's speed cameras or other mechanisms that will slow down traffic, there is a section within the police that would take care of that. So that's who we need to focus on with that kind of discussion.
And I think also having, I guess, evidence of where it's been implemented before and what the success has been could strengthen your case.
Great points.
Thank you.
So I have a proposal for the board. Ashley, thank you. You're going to look into the speed camera issue. Some of what we're talking about is happening in roads that are in District 2. Some of what we're talking about is actually bordering Oakland Mills, but it's actually in District 3. What if, as a board, we came together and we sent, some kind of basically a letter of concern to the District 2 and District 3 representatives on the council about what's happening on the roads, to see if, as Jim said, we could maybe get, at least for some period of time, like Route 100 level enforcement, so that people start realizing you can't just tear through Broken Land Parkway or 175, because the outcome is going to be similar to what would happen if you do that on 100.
Well, shouldn't we send it to them, but do we copy anyone? Do we copy the police? Or start with them?
I think
Well,
copying folks is always a good idea. This is
Yeah,
actually how the police department responded, because they were copied on a note. So yeah, I think you never know who's going to actually be able to take action.
I'll be honest. I'm often, when it comes to Jim, I'm glad you got a good response from members of the police department. When it comes to traffic issues in Howard County, I'm often disappointed by the police department's first and sometimes second reaction.
Mhm.
Several of us were involved in the issues on Stevens Forest Road years ago that ended in getting the curbs and everything. And I'm sorry to say this, but it often seems to me that the police department likes to come up with the reasons they can't rather than the ideas for what they can do. And I just heard it in part of this conversation when someone said, I think it was on 29, which I know we're not necessarily
Right.
talking about. Well, they're not, they can't do that type of enforcement on 29 because there's nowhere to pull cars over. There are shoulders on 29. There are off ramps. You can flash your lights and direct someone to the off ramp. That to me doesn't sound like a valid reason for letting this behavior happen, because you can't find a place to pull people over. There's always going to be a place to pull them over, even if you have to stay on their tail for half a mile till you find the next shoulder or something.
Mhm.
So while I would copy the police department on this, I think we probably need to go beyond them at this point if we really want to see something done, because I would think they're aware of this.
Mhm.
Ginny?
Yeah. Okay. I think two quick points. One, I think we should certainly be sending the letter to the county executive. I know, Jim, I heard what you were saying, but I think he needs to get this letter as well. The other thing is to follow up on Michelle's point and Rebecca's point. One example that we may want to look at again is between Whiteacre and 175 Thunderhill Road. Yes, we have the speed bumps, but there were other proposals that would narrow the area around Walgreens with the median strip, other things that would cut down on some of the speeding there. After you finish those, going from Whiteacre and you finish all those humps, then you're ready to speed to get onto 175 or something. The county kept promising they do something and they have never done anything there. We may as a board want to follow up on that.
We can also add that to the testimony.
Yeah, which is what I think Michelle and Rebecca are talking about in terms of reconfiguring some of the roads to cut down a little bit.
Before we modify the testimony for that specific area, I thought the county determined that that was actually state responsibility for several yards down. So that, the area, I thought the county determined that the area we've really been talking about by the Walgreens is not the county's responsibility because the state controls the portion of the county roads within a certain number of yards of the intersection with the state highway.
I
There
don't
they go
remember
again.
getting that answer.
Well,
don't
I think we
know.
could look at it, but I'm thinking, you know, where Sohap, you make a right onto Oakland Mills Road,
Yeah,
starting there.
by there, it's county, yeah.
Starting there
But when
and
you get,
Oakland
when you
Mills
get to the Walgreens, I think the state actually controls that intersection,
Well, we
even
could
onto
check-
the county road.
Well, we could
Well,
check and have the state delegates work with the county.
can we get back to the other letter though too first? I don't,
Oh, I was saying, put this in, maybe in the letter that we're sending now as this
um,
is another issue.
no.
No?
I-
Actually, we've had so many letters on this issue, we just.
I mean, I don't want to take away from the main roads to focus on SOHAP to 175. I think that's an issue of the streetscapes and the barriers on the road, but I don't know if that's part of the speeding on the 175, 29.
Well, it was, we got an email from somebody on Sohap and Oakland Mills Road about the speeding, leaving, remember? I sent
Yeah.
that on to the board, leaving Blandair.
One
coming
letter,
up Oakland
yeah.
Mills Road and.
Well, I think, and we're way over on this item, but I think for right now, we should include that area, but I think the theme of what we're sending should be about enforcement, because that's going to be your short-term solution to keep someone from getting killed right now. I think longer term, we need to, continue having those discussions about streetscape and other things, but the only short-term fix for this would be for, the police force to redeploy some resources, maybe from other enforcement areas to our area for a while.
Yeah, I'll repeat what I said that I learned, and that was that the answers seem to be speed cameras in logical places, increased police traffic enforcement, and then residential support of that by providing license plates. And I will just say that the complicating factors that you guys have touched on are something to keep in mind, which are, I use Route 100 as an example, but that's a state road. So that's different than 175 or some other road that we would have more control over within the county. But I do thank everybody for your thoughts on this and support. I really appreciate it. Makes me
Thank
feel like I'm
you.
not alone.
Bill?
Yep.
Real quick, one idea would be on this issue, a letter that goes to the county executive, county council, Howard County delegation that outlines the problem in general, the speeding, reckless driving, key roads involve both state and county. And then we ask for solutions, that short-term solutions like greater enforcement, et cetera, that Jim just enunciated, and then more intermediate timelines where laws would have to be passed to allow traffic cameras on greater areas of the county roads and state roads for enforcement. And so that we are on the record, it's a problem. We want you to take action, short-term, long-term, please fix it. So that'd be my idea on how
Can
to
you
do it.
go over the long term again? I got distracted.
The more intermediate long-term would be any laws that would need to be changed in the
Oh.
county or state, which would allow greater speed camera enforcement.
Okay.
And this is old business.
To me,
So this is the second time we've talked about it. It's under old business. And potentially you could write up a draft letter for circulation among the board members. And then, I don't know, we'd have to wait to our next board meeting to vote on that. I'm not sure logistics, but this is the second time we've discussed it, so.
no, I think we'd be fine with it, to get it out right after the next meeting.
Great. Well, let me know if I can help in any other way. I'll definitely be paying attention and following along. And
And
I'm
I'll
going to
keep you
continue.
posted on the letter too, to make sure we get everything.
Great. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate
Thank you,
everybody's help.
everyone. Thanks, everyone.
All the work you've already done, Jim.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm staying on it. I
Good
made a
job.
commitment to it. I'm not going to let it go.
Good.
Thanks.
He's also committed to trash and open space and all kinds of good things
Yeah,
that we
that too,
depend on
yeah,
him
yeah.
for. Thank you.
And tennis, right?
Did
And
you say he's
tennis.
committed to trash?
I'm
Oh,
committed
yeah,
to
he's
trash.
great
Yeah.
with
Sound good, does it, Jonathan?
takes a lot of walks. And
Always
graffiti.
always carry a newspaper bag in your pocket just in
And
case.
graffiti.
Yeah, and graffiti. Yeah.
All right, it looks like we're on to the board chair report. So I'll try to keep it short and sweet. Actually, Paul was there as well as John D. Tomaso from Oakland Mills. We attended the Housing Opportunities Task Force meeting, virtual meeting last week to hear what the consultants had to say and to do our part to weigh in. So all three of us did our part to weigh in, and one of the things we stressed is that the task force should really be considering data coming out of the schools, since housing and schools are so closely linked here in Howard County. And of course, we know what some of our challenges are here in Oakland Mills. So, just wanted to report that we attended. I didn't attend as the board chair. I just attended as a resident of Oakland Mills. But it was, it was an interesting presentation. It was. I'm glad we said some things in the chat that we've been talking about here. The responses from the consultants didn't necessarily make me go, yay, we won, but I wanted to make sure that stuff like that got on the record, and also to thank Paul for joining and for putting things on the record with them as well. I would say my biggest disappointment in all of that was that we didn't get the opportunity to hear from task force members themselves. It was all the consultants running the meeting and responding to us. And of course, we know that, we have people with years and years of experience in Howard County housing on this task force. So that was my disappointment walking away from that we didn't hear from folks like Bill and the other members of the task force. But Oakland Mills definitely was well represented at that last meeting, and I understand that we've been, represented at previous meetings. Actually, Lynn, I think Phil was on that meeting as well. I'm losing track. I was in like 2 meetings every night last week, and I'm losing track of who I was in meetings with. But Phil was there as well.
Don't go far.
Made it as well. So just wanted to point that out. I don't have a whole lot else to report. I made the statement at the beginning about the vacancy on the board, so we'll bring that in as new business at a future meeting to discuss a process for potentially appointing a member of the board. I kind of talked about what went on in the education committee meeting as we were talking about the budget, and much of my attention has really been focused on the budget. The other nice thing, and I might be stealing some thunder from Sandy, but Sandy and I met with the folks from Columbia Community Care at the Stevens Forest Neighborhood Center on yesterday. It was just yesterday morning. And they are very interested in moving their Oakland Mills operations to the summer as the weather gets much colder. And the village in Howard has been very gracious in agreeing to let Columbia Community Care operate there on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And they have I'm losing track of their hours. It's midday.
Wednesday from 4 to 8 and Saturday from 10:30 to 1:30.
Yes, Wednesday evening and Saturday afternoon. So, the village in Howard, as you would expect, stated a few conditions just to ensure that they were safe because of the pandemic going on. And OMCA and Columbia Community Care can definitely, meet, if not exceed, those conditions from the village in Howard. So it all worked out well, and we'll be meeting them up there again this coming Monday, so that they can sign the agreement for use of the neighborhood center. And then we'll put something out informing everyone that if they're, relying on Columbia Community Care for help, they can now find them at the neighborhood center instead of at the middle school, effective, I think it'll be the second week of December.
No, starting next Wednesday.
Next week. That's right. It'll be next Wednesday. The first week is next week December. Yeah, it'll be the first week of December. And also, just to encourage those who can support them to help support them, because they really have done a lot to help our community since the pandemic started. They've been out at Oakland Mills Middle every Wednesday and Saturday since the beginning. And, unfortunately, I go by there often. I've dropped off donations, and they always have plenty of customers in line. So it'll be good to get them inside out of the elements, so that at least their volunteers can stay warm and stay dry. Unfortunately, those waiting for their services would, because of COVID, would still have to line up outside. But at least at the neighborhood center, there is that area where you, that breezeway where you would enter the pool, where you can take some cover if it's raining or something like that. So I think that'll be a better situation for them. And I'm glad we could work all of that out for them, and that we could help them out while they're helping out our community.
Yep.
And that's all I have, unless there are any questions. All right, I'll send it over to Ginny for the CCR report.
Thanks, Jonathan. I agree with you in terms of the housing meeting. I wasn't able to go the night you guys went. I went, was it a week before that, Bill, or 2 weeks before, and testified as an individual. But they only had an hour. I think that may be why, if the task force started asking questions, they'd never get finished. They really wanted to hear from the people. My one frustration, in addition to all the things you mentioned.
Ginny, you
just
just
muted.
muted.
No,
There you go.
I'm not.
You're-
Okay. Should you-
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, that the consultant keeps insisting that there's a need for X number of affordable housing countywide. And I keep trying to explain at these meetings that it really, unless you want to locate the housing in the outside of the metropolitan water and sewer district, you have very little land, only 11% in the metropolitan district that has not been developed. So they're really looking at Snowden, Dobbin, Gateway, and our village centers to locate a lot of it. And we have to be realistic about that. Maybe Route 1, but there was some opposition from Route 1. But, that's basically what we're talking about. And they keep denying that, saying there'll be overlays in the western part in the rural area. Well, that's going to be interesting. They may propose that, but there's a reality as to whether that'll be accepted by people in the Clarksville, those areas out west. That should be very interesting. So I think that's still a reality problem there. As far as CA, are there any questions about the budget that you have, or process, or anything like that?
Yeah, Ginny,
Or-
I wanted to bring up a concern that Alex had regarding swimming pools. He said that there was a staff report and that there would be a limited number of swimming pools open next summer. Could you comment on that?
I think there's a misunderstanding. I think what Alex, I tried getting hold of him. He's out of town. I left a message for him and we missed each other. I think what he may be referring to is when the CA board was dealing with the capital budget on, I think it was November 12th. There was a question from one of the CA board members about how would, or what would CA be doing to meet the need of, or how many pools would it take of outdoor pools to meet the need of the swim teams? And if you remember in the FY20 budget, we were told 14 pools would do it. And the goal was, if you had to close pools, at least try and keep 14 open. Well, then it went to 9, and obviously none of that worked out. But the answer CA board member got was 14, and then she got 15 as the answer. And that was interpreted as CA was recommending only opening 15 pools. That was not the question, and that was not the answer. And it's the opening pools is part of the operating budget. We were on the capital budget. And the CA board moved part of the capital budget forward. One part was approved for requests on basically any energy retrofits, green projects, watershed improvements. About 448,000 of the 800 million capital budget was approved unanimously, I believe, by the CA board, and that's category 1. When you get into category 2, I raised some concerns about where I was really hoping the county and the state, and if there's any money from the feds, would get more involved in partnering with CA on things like dam improvements, Wild Lake Dam, like Elkhorn Dam, that's a couple of hundred, about 400 grand there. So of a $3,957,000 budget in category 2, there were questions about the tot lots and what the plan was for tot lots, everything. So what the board did was say, we will move that ahead, but we will be voting on that as part of the entire budget, and that'll be the end of February. And then whatever's left, which is a couple of million, is category 3, which the staff would decide. We didn't even vote on that. The staff will decide what is really needed in terms of emergencies on all of our buildings, et cetera. So that's sort of, it's not specific. It's really going to depend on what the community buildings need, what other facilities need that are emergency. And it goes through a process where it's just not one person making that decision. But that's the remainder of the $8 million. So I think that's what happened. That was the confusion.
Okay, thanks for the
And I'm
clarification.
trying to reach Alice to explain that. There has been no decision, just in general, I've said this many times, but I'll say it again. The process is that the staff will be proposing a budget. January 8th, we will get the operating budget. This is a staff budget. At that point, there'll be lots of public hearings in January and in February, and even extra hearings if needed, where the board will be having input from the residents. And there, all the ways that people can tell us what they think, but you will actually have something concrete. We're also looking at the potential in January for a virtual town hall where people can talk about the budget and just, other people can listen in and we'll stream it, et cetera. So that's another thing we're working on for January. And I think the key there would be to actually let people talk about the operating budget. So that would be another opportunity. So there'll be plenty of opportunities, but keep in mind, it's a staff budget. The board will be voting on it in late February. So we will have input from the staff with why they think X should be done or not done. And then we will have input from the residents, and then we'll make a decision. But so how that rumor got around that we're going to close all but 15 pools, it's not true. I don't know how many times to say that. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you. We sort of covered the whole budget process right there. The search continues for a replacement for Milton. We are getting resumes in, and we will be interviewing in late January and hopefully hiring and have somebody hired by the end of February and begin service May 1st. Milton term is
comment
April
on
30th.
that.
What?
I'd like to comment on that. I
Sure.
haven't seen anything in the flyer or in the Baltimore Sun saying that this position is, we're looking for folks. I mean, my opinion, I'm frankly tired of the carpetbaggers that we've gotten that have come in here. They have not done for us a very good job. President president included. And you need somebody ideally who lives here in Columbia who knows the issues, rather than somebody coming in, needs 6 months to get up to speed. And you're in, I hate to say it, but pretty dire straits right now. And having somebody who's not familiar with CA, I think will be a big detriment, at least in my opinion. So have you advertised locally?
Ginny,
You're muted, Ginny.
Ginny, you're muted.
The search firm was talking about, I know, an ad in the Washington Post. I'm not sure where else. I can find out and let you know. I know Rebecca sent in a suggestion that they will be posting on, what was it?
Strong Towns. And I was going to tell you, I was impressed. I actually went to go post it there myself, and it was already up. So
Well, yeah,
On what?
I talked to Sharon at Baker Tilly, and we talked about, she had gotten your email, and we talked about it, and she was researching it. It wasn't as simple to post that and find out who the people are really. They looked at their Facebook, et cetera. It took a lot of work to figure out how to get it to them so it'd be effective. But this was about 3 or 4 days ago when I talked with her, and they were going to do it. So thank you.
Where was it posted?
Strong Towns, there's a group, it's a nonprofit actually that does training. I mean, they do lots of stuff, but one of the things they do is they train city planners and stuff into a newer model of organizing communities, I guess. It's just an online community that has a philosophy that has kind of echoed my priorities. I just told Ginny I wanted to try to get it posted there, and her people did it already. So I was impressed with that, because I looked 3 or 4 days ago to when I got the email from CA to go post it, and I was like, oh.
Does LinkedIn post jobs? Does
Haven't-
anybody know?
Yes, it does.
Well, that's what everybody seems to be using these days.
Right.
You would think that there would be something up on it.
Well, if it only went up 3 or 4 days ago and they're already getting resumes, whatever they're doing is working.
No, my issue is getting local resumes.
But
Like I said, I'm tired of the carpetbaggers.
well, actually, there have been some local. You know, if you know somebody, have them send it in. Or they can send it to me and I'll send it on, but have them send their resume. They are getting local already. But I understand what you're saying. You'd like to see a lot more, probably.
Well, and then the other issue is if it's posted, you can take a look at what the quote unquote requirements are and address them in your resume. Otherwise, it'll be thrown out of hand.
Let me make a suggestion. Would the village board be willing to post it on your site? All the villages?
It's a good idea.
I think we should post it on ours. I mean, we can't speak for the other villages, but I think we could post it on ours.
Okay. Okay. I'll get that sent to you. Okay.
I think it's fine to encourage local people, but I think we also want to cast a wide net. I mean, this is a multi-million-dollar outfit that's being run by one president. So I think that we want to really consider all comers. Is there a search committee per se?
There was a search committee that I headed to hire the firm, and Baker Tilly is an international firm.
Okay.
So, they're they're very impressive, and they're sending it all over. Monica at CA is handling that. She's head of HR, so I'm sure they're going over a whole list. I happened to call Sharon because of Rebecca's referral and another issue, but I'm not checking every place they're sending it, quite frankly. They understand this area. They've worked on some work for in Virginia and other Montgomery and Prince George's. So, yeah. I mean, these people know what they're doing, if that's what you're asking. There is not a search committee of the CA board. The whole board will be dealing with this issue. We should be getting up to 15 candidates, and we will narrow it down. We also are working on how to get some community more involvement other than the survey that we did, which we got the results, if those of you that filled out the survey, from the business community, from village boards, from village managers, from the committees, the advisory committees, the CA, and I'm trying to think who else filled it out, which we appreciated. So that was good, and that analysis has been done, and that was to really come up with what characteristics you wanted to see in the next CEO president that is helping them. So that's basically the process. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jenny.
I have another question for Ginny on a different topic. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
And maybe, Jenny, I should just call CA tomorrow and find out, but could you tell us a little bit about how CA is treating gym memberships and freezing and their philosophy on that?
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit, but if it's a specific person, no, okay. I can help you with that too if you just send me an email. But basically, they have been freezing membership. They will continue to do that. I think it's got to do with the January billing. Everybody will be notified you can continue to freeze your membership. They are well aware that some people, it's actually until people get the vaccine and feel comfortable, there are people that just don't feel comfortable going into the gym, even with all the precautions that CA is taking. I go there every day, Bill goes there, but there are people you can understand. They just don't feel comfortable. And now we've got, you have to wear masks the entire time you're in there, including cardio workout. And you get your temperature taken when you walk in, and you get your bottle of cleaner and your rag to wipe everything down first and then wipe it when you're finished. And most people are doing that. I did have a guy come in a couple of treadmills away, and because you can't go on a treadmill near somebody. They have some that are off limits. And he wasn't going to wipe anything down. I didn't have a spray bottle. This was this morning. And I said, didn't you get a spray bottle when you came in? And he said, oh yeah, it's in my bag. I said, well, you're supposed to wipe it down. I said, well, do you know if the person before me wiped it down? I'm thinking, yeah, let's see now. I was here since 4 a.m. and I was really watching that machine, and I could tell you what happened. Come on, fella. So he wiped it down. And then after that, I saw he was wiping it. So, you have to once in a while gently remind somebody that it's in your best interest and everybody else's, but that's rare. That is really rare. It's 1 out of 100 people. And then they usually cooperate right away. So I'm impressed with our staff, quite frankly, and they are so grateful to be working. They've been out of work for a while. Others are still out of work. So those that are working are just so happy they're working and so worried that, will they continue to have a job is always in their minds.
Does the limited 10 people indoor gathering thing apply at all to gyms or?
No, I'm trying to think if it's 25%. We don't have a problem. We're, I think, at about 30%, but I don't know how you figure that out because, they come and go all the time, but we are not packed. We're not crowded. It's not a problem.
I think new guidelines came out, I think just last night from from Howard County.
Some are in effect on, on Friday, the
On Friday.
27th.
Yeah,
That probably affected the hockey tournament because the county has
It's
said
getting
no
moved out of
tournament.
Howard County.
The county,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
They're moving it out of Howard County
Oh, really?
because under the new guidelines, they wouldn't be able to hold it here this weekend anyway because of the number of people they'd have indoors at the rink. So
Okay.
I got something saying that they're looking to move it entirely to the surrounding counties. I won't comment on whether that's a responsible choice. There's a reason they can't have it in Howard County. Maybe they should be thinking about that, but it won't be here.
Well, if it's not safe, it's not safe. That's the important thing. You want to make sure it's safe. I don't know what guidelines changed because CA was doing everything possible to make sure it would be safe.
Yeah, it was a new,
I sent all those instructions that they had.
yeah.
Well, it really isn't a CA issue. It's that Howard County has said no more athletic tournaments. So they couldn't, no matter how safe CA makes the rink, they couldn't hold it here.
Yeah, it's in effect Friday, so that would have impacted it.
Okay.
yeah, it says effective November 27th at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Limits will affect recreational sports, cancellation of all sports tournaments.
Right.
Well, that's a revenue loss. Okay, thank you. But, safety comes first.
Life lived.
Yeah, right.
Safety comes first. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you, Ginny. Lynn, no, I'm sorry, Sandy, village manager.
Well, you took away all my report anyway. No, so yeah, we worked with the Columbia Community Care, and it'll be great just to be able to have them there. And the village in Howard said they can keep the tables up. The volunteers will be inside and they'll flow through from the front door out the back door. The doors will be open for ventilation. And so they'll sign a COVID waiver and a rental agreement. It is, there's not a fee, but that's just part of being responsible management. So that should work great starting Wednesday. Brigida organized a holiday donation drive, so we will be back at the other barn on the 5th of December collecting toys, used and unused toys that we will give to Columbia Community Care for their toy drive. And we are collecting non-perishable food for the Oakland Mills High School Food Bank. And we will put out the flyer again next week after Thanksgiving so that people are reminded. We already collected a nice amount of non-perishables at last Saturday. So hopefully more folks will donate to that. We're going to have a Lively Arts virtual concert welcoming in the new year rather than have a Santa event. This will be on Saturday, January 9th, I believe is the date, in the morning. So it'll be a virtual concert with one of our favorite performers who has been doing these concerts. So we'll be promoting that. The neighborhood centers, Talbot Springs. I went to all the buildings yesterday with CA Construction. It was our yearly walkthrough of the facilities, and everything is in great shape because they're not used much. But I was really impressed with Talbot Springs. We have a new daycare there, and it serves an population that needs daycare in the community. I believe this daycare must get grants from the state because there were boxes of snacks and food. And anyway, it was so nice to go in. The kids all had masks on. They had little shields on. These are young kids, lots of adults. And then there were school kids that were there because their parents are working. And they were sitting at the tables, with, screening around them. So they had their own space. And it was just a really nice thing to see at the neighborhood center. So they're a really good new tenant. At Stevens Forest, the Village in Howard, they're just using the office there, and maybe, a volunteer or two might come in the center, but they still are not comfortable meeting in there, though we've arranged, and I talked to John and Bill, they're paying some monthly rent, as are the Oakland Mills Nursery School at Thunder Hill, they are not ready to open up their school, but they want the use of the building for when they come back. So we worked out an arrangement with them so that we can cover our utilities and our once a week cleaning for our janitor to go in. So that's all good. And, you know, weddings are down to 10 people indoors starting Friday. So I'm glad that we didn't have anything to cancel because that would have been terrible. So we'll just look forward to a booming late 2021. And that's about it. The office will be closed Thursday and Friday. Of course, I will check messages. And that's it. And I'll do the financials December 8th. We just got them back from the accountant and I want to go over them. So I'll be sharing that with you in advance.
Sandy, any questions for Sandy? All right, now it's Lynn's turn.
Okay, we had a RAC meeting last Thursday and it's, you know, the applications are kind of dwindling down a slight amount. So we had 11 applications and I'm sorry, 11 applications, and of the 11, 10 of them were unanimously approved. And again, you know, I'm just really impressed with the quality of the applications and the you know, these really thoughtful, well-designed proposals for what people want to do with their properties. We had one that we had to deny, not because it was anything wrong with it, other than the application was incomplete. And we had asked to have the, we tabled it a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, I can't remember if it was 3, Sandy, and asked for more information. And the resident just didn't get back to us. So we are contacting the resident and saying, you know, please, you know, if something came up where you were unable to get the information to us, feel free to apply again. So pretty good success rate. It's actually been a real pleasure to be in the RAC meeting. So it's you know, it's a nice back and forth, and people are very excited about what they're doing with their houses. And the RAC committee is good about giving suggestions so that, you know, what we intend to do is to make it so that everybody's application is one that can be approved. So, you know, advice back and forth and changes. People are participating in the meetings on Zoom, and so we can make changes to the application just right on the spot if that's necessary. So it's working out pretty well. We'll have another meeting next Thursday and, you know, just continue on from there. So any questions?
All right, thank you, Lynn. Paul, BWI Metroplex?
Yeah, we finally had a meeting on November the 17th. This is the first meeting since November of 2019. We haven't had any Zoom meetings. Everything that's been done has been done somewhat by email. However, we've had a technical committee that's been working on this performance-based navigation for approaches. Just to refresh everybody's memory, back in 2018, the roundtable approved departures from runway 28, which is the one that really impacts Howard County, because you have the planes taking off to the northwest. Now, we approved some changes that would shift what that track is to go further south. However, with the COVID, the FAA has not been addressing performance-based navigation. What we've had is the chief pilot of Southwest running some proposed tracks that we thought were doable, and he was looking at them to see if they were flyable. because that's the big issue for the pilots. Turns out that basically a lot of them are, but they still have to go through this performance-based navigation working group. And that probably won't happen in terms of any imprimatur until June of 2021. And if they are approved, we think they will be for departures. We're not sure for approaches. It will take 18 to 24 months basically to implement them. So you're talking 2023. Now, I've been at this now for 5 years, and we still have not seen any changes take place. So it's the working through the technical issues. But what we did find out is the FAA is constantly tweaking their tracks, and they can do that without getting us involved. However, the big thing that's coming up, and this is a state requirement, is every 5 years they have to define the noise contours for BWI. It's a state requirement. It's not a federal requirement. We'll be briefed on what they're planning on doing at the next meeting on December the 15th. We elected new folks to lead us. Mary Reese from Anne Arundel County is going to be our chair, and familiar voice, Deb Young. She's going to be the vice chair. And that was after a little bit of a contentious election process that we had. But Mary says that she'll be doing meetings every month, even if they have to be virtual, because as she said, and I personally agree with her, we've basically lost the year's worth of momentum in terms of meeting as a group. It's true that the technical committee has been meeting, but there are other issues out there. I mean, we have a much longer term view of what needs to be done with noise. So that's my report. Things are looking up.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions for Paul? All right, then we are on to the bulletin board. So let me see who I have here. Amy, anything for you? Okay, Ginny?
No, happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Rebecca? Okay, Paul?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Lynn?
Nothing more.
All right, Bill?
Yes, a few. First of all, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And I've got about 4 or 5 things here quick. An idea. We talk with Jim Alfie and our board about creating a traffic committee with him as the chair. Might help him in negotiating, getting information and staying on top of things. Just an idea. Second thing is on the Housing Committee Task Force, the consultant, talking often about the need for 30 to 40,000 new housing units in the county. And the water and sewer district, there's only 11% to be developed. If you use the current density on the 89 that's already been developed, there's only enough room for another 13 to 14,000 housing units, not 30 to 40. And I've stated that 2 or 3 times at our housing meetings because the consultant keeps pushing, we need to get housing for 30 to 40,000. That's the demand. Supply is going to be 13 to 14,000 in the water and sewer district. The 2 open houses, thank you so much to all the Oak Mills members and particularly the Oak Mills board members here who were on those 2 Zoom meetings and made major contributions. I do feel that they did have an impact. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. The open houses, they were set up to be run by the consultants. The consultants run a lot of the meetings. The ones that are run by the task force are the task force led discussion sessions. The fifth and final one will be December 3rd. And I'll be getting out information on that when it's available. The two final items. One, I talked with Bob Bellamy a week or so ago. He used to be the covenant, one of the covenant advisors here in Oak Mills. And he said he has friends here in Oak Mills. He does not live here, but many of his friends in Oak Mills tell him, hey, you know, Oak Mills is really looking good. The housing is really looking good.
Yeah.
And Bob still drives through Oak Mills. He goes back and looks at houses he worked on and issues, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, Bill, Oak Mills is really looking good. So I wanted to pass that on to everybody who's involved in that process. And my thanks for a job well done on that issue. And then over the weekend, I was talking with a friend of mine, Nils, who was an engineer for Verizon. I've known him 50 years. I've worked with him often in projects in Verizon. He also now is retired and does web design. And I was talking with him, and he, to me, is the top engineer I've ever worked with. And his knowledge in engineering and computers is incredible. So I was talking with him over the weekend. We're talking websites, et cetera. And I list 3 or 4 that I can't stand, that are really bad, et cetera. And I said, you know, one real good one is Oakland Mills. And we got, as we're talking, he's calling him up on his PC. Okay, he says, I'm looking at this right now. Yeah, I know what you mean about that. Not a good site. Oakland Mills over here. Yeah, let me go through this. And he's going through all the different options in there. And he said, I got just one complaint, is with today's technology, things shouldn't take 3-4 seconds to load. You might want to talk about that. And I have covered that with Jonathan. And
Amy's on. She can probably add a lot to that.
Yeah, I actually know why that is, and it has to do with our web hosting. We were working on that before COVID happened, but because of COVID, it's kind of messed up things, and we've had to stick with our current web host. But yeah, that's pretty much what it is that's making it slow. So yeah, I'm very aware of it.
Okay, thanks. That's what Nils probably thought it was. He said, I don't know what host they're on. He was going through the website and he'd say, they're using this and this and this to build it, et cetera, et cetera. And I said to him, I said, you know, Nils, I love our website. It's easy to navigate, truckload of information. You can get from one place to another very easily. He's gone through it and everything. He says, oh, I see your picture here, Bill. Here's support. He's gone through the whole thing. He said, Bill, I really like this website. And I said, Nils, my opinion is, and I go to lots of websites, is Oak Mills is in the top 10% of websites I've ever been on. And he said, Bill, I agree. So that's from a guy that I hold in very high regard. He's very knowledgeable. So I want to pass that thank you on to all the folks at Oak Mills who work on that. So it's 2 big Thanksgiving thank yous on the covenants and on the website. Thank you. I'm done.
Thanks, Bill. Sandy?
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. And Bill, thank you for that, because Amy and Brigitte worked very hard on the website. And now I do remember, yeah, like the day we were leaving, we were talking all about switching the host and doing stuff, and it will still happen, but probably when we get back together, Amy, or right about that, or yeah.
Yeah, we just didn't want to switch because we didn't, things can go wrong. And we didn't want it to happen right at election time, right when everything was shutting down.
So it's on her radar because she's the one who gets frustrated by it as well. But thank you to them. And I will also pass along the look of the community to Karina and to Lynn and the RAC and everyone else, because we really do care. So it's nice that it's showing. So anyway, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Stay healthy. That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll second what Bill said. It really is showing, and you know, it's thanks to you and Karina and Carrie and Lynn. Even you know, that one particular horror house that bothered me has now received a new roof and a new garage door, and it's looking up, and I guess it's going to be sold eventually. So I can't find anything to complain about right now. I'll look harder. I'll go for some walks and look around, but it looks really good. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Please be safe. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And remember that most of the business at that first well, that only meeting in December, because we don't hold
Right.
the second meeting in December, will be dedicated to Paul getting the getting his feedback. So, you know, if we need to work a new business item in there, or we have any kind of emergency item, you know, there'll be some time for that, but the bulk of those couple of hours will be to hear from our residents.
Okay.
All right, thanks
Right.
very much. We're adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving,
Happy
everybody.
Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.